Hi, my name's Tony Park. I'm talking to you here today courtesy of the Sydney Mechanics School of Arts. It's the oldest lending library in Sydney. First started in 1833 and today it's located in Pitt Street. It's a wonderful oasis in the middle of the city and it's a library I'm proud to be a member of. It also hosts the Thomas Kneally Centre, which is Thomas Kneally's own personal collection of books, and it's a lovely place to stop and just take a little moment out of the day. It's a great place for inspiration if you're an aspiring writer as well too. My story is I'm an Australian who writes novels set in Africa. To date, I've written 15 novels with the 16th one, Scent of Fear, due out in December. I never planned on writing novels set in Africa, but the one thing I always knew from the time that I was a little kid is the only thing that I wanted to do in life was to write a book. That's easier said than done. And a lot of people will tell you that it's not possible or it's too hard or that you'll never get published. But I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I went to school, I was okay at English, but I got a job working as a journalist. I think that helped a little bit, but I wouldn't say that a career in writing is a prerequisite for writing a novel. And to some extent, I had to unlearn a lot of what I was taught as a journalist when it came to writing novels. I then worked for public relations companies, so I was always working with words, but I knew inside me that what I really wanted to do was write a book. One thing I learned very quickly is that there are two big obstacles to writing a novel. They are time, that is having enough time to put together what is about 120,000 words in one of these books. It takes me about 6 months to write a first draft of a novel. And a place. A place is also very important. A place that you want to write about, and also a nice place where you can go to, ideally, and think about what you want to write before you write it. So as I said, my books are all set in Africa, mostly southern Africa. They're mostly contemporary novels, although a couple are historical. They deal with current affairs in Africa, things such as the environment, the plight of wildlife, which is something I've become very passionate about because poaching of endangered species is a big problem in Africa. And my latest book, The Cull, certainly deals with that. Like the others, it's set in a spectacular wildlife area. One of the things I like about travelling to Africa is its incredible game parks and reserves. So I draw the inspiration for a lot of my stories, not only from current affairs, but from the landscape that I'm in. I think that's very important as a writer as well. Captive is a book about a veterinarian, a wildlife veterinarian. When we think about vets, we quite often think of the kindly man or woman that treats our dog or cat when they're sick. Wildlife veterinarians in Africa are almost like soldiers. They're involved in the war against poaching. Rhinos are killed for their horns, elephants are killed for their ivory, and a host of other animals are also subjected to danger. The veterinarians see the cost of this war up front, close and personal. Animals killed, baby animals orphaned, it's terrible. But what I look for in my books, I think is inspiration. So you need inspiration as a writer, you need material, things to write about, but I also like to be inspired. And for all of the troubles and strife and problems that I see in my travels in Africa, I see a lot of hope. My wife and I these days spend 6 months of every year in Africa. We have a house in South Africa and I write my novels on location as I'm travelling around. We're very lucky to live this life and it gives me that inspiration, that idea and that place that I need to write my books. I think if I've got any tips for people who would like to write, for aspiring writers, they're pretty simple. I think number one, you have to really want to do this. You really, really want to write. It has to be your passion. Number two, write what you want to write, not what you think is going to sell or what other people will want to read. Number three is that you're not alone in this job. Editors play a crucial and vital role in this process. If you're lucky to get a publishing contract, and I was very lucky that I found a publisher that wanted novels set in Africa, you've got to listen to your editors because they will give you really valuable feedback. And the test of a good editor is when you get back a comment or a suggestion and you look at it and you say, why didn't I think of that myself? If you're going to self-publish a book, I've seen a lot of people who've done that and I think that's a perfectly good avenue to go down if you can't get a mainstream publisher. But I've seen too many authors spend a lot of money on very fancy, nice covers and a nice layout for their book, but they don't spend any money on an editor. So look at editors for what they are. They're there to help you and they're there to help you make your book a success. The key thing though is that you have to be passionate and you have to follow your dream. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not a sporty person, but I like to run and I like to swim. I'm never going to be a marathon runner or an Olympic swimmer and swim for Australia, but I run and I swim because I enjoy it and I love it and I get a little bit of a buzz out of it. That's the way you should approach your writing. Thanks for watching us, and thanks to the Sydney Mechanics School of Arts Library.